NIOS welcomes you all in this video for subject Political Science. Code is 317 for Senior Secondary class. This is module number 3, Structure of Government, lesson number 10. Topic is Union Executive. This is part 2. Lesson objectives. Our first objective is power of the president. And second objective, role of the vice president. Third objective is how prime minister is appointed and his or her council of ministers is constituted. Next objective is powers and functions of the prime minister and his or her council of ministers. So we will discuss these objectives in this lesson. As you see in the picture, powers of the president. First is executive power. Second power is legislative. Third power is financial. And fourth power is judicial. All the four powers has president. First, I will discuss executive powers. The president is the head of the state and executive powers of the union have vested in him. Second point, the president is empowered to exercise these powers directly or through officers subordinate to him, which means through the prime minister and council of ministers. It means president can use his power. The president appoints the prime minister. He also appoints other ministers on the advice of the prime minister. He allocates portfolios among the ministers on the advice of the prime minister. He may remove any minister on the advice of the prime minister. the President appoints the Chief Justice and other judges of the Supreme Court and High Court with the consent of the Chief Justice. So, in the appointment of High Court judges, the President also consults other judges of the Chief Justice of the state. In the appointment of Chief Justice and the Justice of High Court, the President has to consult the state governor. In accordance with the 1993 decision of Supreme Court, the President is bound by the recommendations of a panel of senior most judges of the Supreme Court in the matter of all judicial appointments. This panel, headed by Chief Justice, is known as the Collegium of Supreme Court. The President appoints the Attorney General, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, the Chief Election Commissioner and the other election commissioners, the chairman and members of Union Public Service Commissions. He or she appoints the governor of states and lead of union territories. All such appointments are made on the advice of Union Cabinet headed by the Prime Minister. The President is the supreme commander of the armed force. The President makes appointments of Chiefs of Army, Navy and Air Force. The President can declare war and make peace. his or her capacity. The President appoints India's ambassadors and high commissioners in other countries. All diplomatic work is conducted in his or her name, and all international treaties are negotiated and concluded in his or her name. All laws enacted by the Union Parliament are enforced by him or her. All officials appointed by the President may be removed or recalled by him or her on the advice of the Union Council of Ministers. All the functions are performed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. All decisions of the Union government are communicated to him or her by Prime Minister. The President can ask the Prime Minister only once to have a recommendation of the executive reconsidered by the Cabinet. As you can see in the heading, legislative powers. The President summons and prorogues the Houses of Parliament. President anytime can summon or postpone the Houses for meeting. He may summon the Parliament at least twice a year. The President has the power to dissolve the Lok Sabha even before the expiry of its term, on the recommendation of its Prime Minister. In normal course, he or she dissolves Lok Sabha after 5 years. The President nominates 12 members to Rajya Sabha from amongst persons having special knowledge in the field of literature, science, art, and social service. The President may also nominate 2 members from Anglo-Indian community to the Lok Sabha. In case that community is not adequately represented. The President can call a joint sittings of the 2 houses in case of disagreement between both houses on a non-money bill. The President addressed the joint session of both the houses at first after every general election. Every bill passed by the Parliament is sent to the President for his or her assent. The President may return the bill for reconsideration or of the Parliament. Bills cannot become a law without his assent. Next power is financial power. All money bills are introduced in Lok Sabha only with the prior approval of the President. The President has control over contingency funds of India. Annual budget and railway budget are introduced in Lok Sabha on the recommendation of the President. The President appoints the Finance Commission after every 5 years, which give recommendation on distribution of central taxes between the Union and the state. The President also receives the report of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Break.
प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो,
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो। कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, बेविषय की लोट से युक्त हो। कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, बेविषय की लोट से युक्त हो। मित्रों हम पढ़े और जागे, मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने। हम अपना जीवन स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने। राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबके आगे।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर दुनिया में इसके केंद्र बाटे। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने, हम अपना जीवन स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने,
नए शिक्षार्थियों से अनुरोध है कि 30 जनवरी 2024 को दोपहर 3 बजे से 4 बजे के दौरान निदेशक विद्यार्थी सहायता सेवाएं सीधे प्रसारण में उपलब्ध रहेंगे। इस कार्यक्रम के दौरान आप सभी NIOS में प्रवेश एवं अध्ययन संबंधित अपने प्रश्नों को हमारे ईमेल एड्रेस nioslivevideo@gmail.com, YouTube चैनल NIOS Live Video व टोल फ्री नंबर 1800-180-2543 के माध्यमों द्वारा पूछ सकते हैं।
Welcome back. We already discussed 3 points. Let's see the fourth one, judicial powers. The President appoints Chief Justice of Supreme Court and High Court. He or she also appoints law officers of the Union Government, including the Attorney General of India. The President, as head of state, can pardon a criminal or reduce the punishment of suspend. Committee or remit the sentence of a criminal convicted by the Supreme Court or High Courts for an offence against the federal law, including death sentence. President performs his functions on the advice of law ministers. Position of the President. The office of the President of the high dignity but not of a real powers. The powers formally vested in him or her are actually exercised by the Union Council of Ministers. If the President tries to act against the wishes of the Council of Ministers, he or she may create constitutional crisis or may face impeachment. Thus, the President has no alternative but to act in accordance with the Prime Minister, who is head of the real executive. The 42 Amendment Act has made it obligatory for the President to act only on the advice of the Council of Ministers and not independently. According to 44th Amendment Act, the President can send back a bill passed by the Parliament for reconsideration only once. But the President of India is not mere rubber stamp. The Constitution lays down that the President has to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. The President can ask a newly appointed Prime Minister to seek a vote of confidence in the Lok Sabha within a stipulated period of time. All the administration of the country is carried on her name. All the decisions of the cabinet are communicated to the President. According to B.R. Ambedkar, the President is the head of the state, not the executive. The President represents the nation but not the rule over nation. Vice President. The Vice President of India is elected directly by an electoral college. It is done by both the houses on the basis of proportional representation by means of single transferable vote system. The Vice President cannot be a member of either of houses of parliament or of state legislature. Qualifications of Vice President. He or she has to be a citizen of India. Second, should not be less than 35 years of age. Next point, should not hold any office of profit. Next, should be eligible to be elected as a member of Rajya Sabha. If the 4 points are tenure and removal, the Vice President is elected for a term of 5 years. His or her, he or she may resign from the office before the expiry of 5 years by writing to the President. The Vice President can be removed before 5 years if resolution to This effect is passed by a majority of members of Rajya Sabha and agreed to by the Lok Sabha. Functions of the Vice President. The Vice President is the ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha, which means that she or he presides over the Rajya Sabha. He or she performs normal duties of a presiding officer. This includes maintenance of order in the House, allowing members to speak and ask questions, and putting bills and motions to vote. Powers of Vice President. Since the Vice President is not the member of Rajya Sabha, he or she cannot vote, but in case of a tie, the Vice President casts vote, so that decision can be reached. If ever a vacancy arises in the office of President due to death, resignation, or impeachment, the Vice President officiates as the President of not more than 6 months. During that period, he enjoys all the power of the President and does not preside over the House. In case the President is temporarily unable to discharge his or her functions, the Vice President may be called upon to discharge his or her functions without becoming officiating President. The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The executive powers of the Prime President are exercised by the Council of Ministers. The President is the constitutional head of state, but the real head of the government is the Prime Minister. The Constitution provides that there shall be a Council of Ministers with the Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President in the exercise of his functions. Appointment of the Prime Minister. Prime Minister is appointed by the President, but the President does not have freedom in the selection of the Prime Minister. The President has to invite leader of the majority party to form the government. In case no single party is in clear majority, the President invites the person who is likely to commit support of 2 or more parties which make up majority in the Lok Sabha. Once appointed, the Prime Minister holds office so long as he or she enjoys the support of the majority of members of Lok Sabha. However, there have been cases when members of Rajya Sabha was made the Prime Minister. For example, Mr. I.K. Gujral and Mrs. Indira Gandhi, etc. Council of Ministers. Members of the Council of Ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. Members, while selecting the ministers, the PM keeps in mind that there should be due representation of different religions of the country to various religions and caste groups. In coalition government, the members of coalition parties have to be given due representation in the council. Eligibility. The Prime Minister decides portfolios of the ministers and can alter at his will. The Prime Minister decides portfolios of the ministers and can alter at his wills. In order to be minister, a person has to be a member of either the two houses of parliament. Even a person who is not a member of any of the two houses can become a minister for a period of 6 months. Within 6 months, the minister has to get herself elected to either houses of the parliament, failing which he or she ceases to be a minister. So far we discussed part 1 and 2. This is the end of the chapter we discussed. Hope you all understand. Thank you for watching.
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय शिक्षा संस्थान NIOS शिक्षा मंत्रालय भारत सरकार के अंतर्गत एक स्वायत्त संस्थान है।